Shalom, everybody. It is Jude here. My Hebrew name is Sister Naeem Shakam. This can probably go on for a while, so I'm going to try to hurry up and jump right in. The name of this video, I was instructed to entitle it Shame to AHAYAHS Glory. And I think it's beautiful. I don't want us to get wrapped up on names or anything like that because I don't really think, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter because it definitely matters. It definitely matters. I don't want to diminish the importance and significance of the Most High's name. But I basically put that out there to say that it doesn't matter what name you call on right now. Hopefully you can identify with this truth. This is my personal testimony. I would say it's my whole life's testimony. And again, it really is something that what I'm about to reveal about myself, it's nothing new for me to reveal. I've revealed it in times past before, and I've revealed small things here and there. This about to be one where I reveal it, like, just kind of lay it all bare. All right, so shame to AHAYAHS glory. To me, that's been like my whole life story. It really has. A lot of people who have been following me for many years or who know me personally, they know that I was molested and raped when I was much younger. I have talked about the sexual sins that have come from that, the doorway, the gateway that was opened because of that. Don't get me wrong, like when it comes to us as little children, we don't need any extra help with being curious um, and experimenting and doing things that are technically wrong. We learn to lie, steal, all types of sinful, wicked things when we're young. And nobody had to teach us. It seems to come very, very naturally. But to have that truth and then to infuse it with someone who violates and abuses a child physically and also I would say mentally, it's like that's a floodgate of sinful activity that's just waiting to happen. So anyway, I don't want to be all long and drawn out because y'all know me. You know that I can talk. Because of sexual immorality that happened to me, because of that spirit that was led into my life, it didn't just affect me, it affected people around me. Because once it gets on you, it can hop onto other people through you. You can transfer it through other people. There are things that I did as a young lady that I'm going to share, not to be sharing all my business, not to embarrass anybody, but to really talk about what the Most High is able to do in our lives. Like, I had sexual experiences with people who were close to me. I've had friends, family when I was younger, all because of what happened to me. After coming up out of that type of stuff, and that spirit is still growing because every time you give into it and every time you feed it and you do stuff that you're not supposed to do with anybody, um it gives it that much more of a hold for you. So I'm over here experimenting with people, same sexes, different sex, everybody, because of this spirit. I became promiscuous at a really young age, like mentally promiscuous at first, because that's where everything starts. Everything starts in the mind, and I became mentally promiscuous. And for a while, I was just mentally promiscuous. I would just think about different things. I would think about seducing guys that I thought that I liked. And I didn't just want the young guys my age. I could remember being as young as 9 or 10, looking at the teenagers, the ones who were 4 years, 5 years older than me, and trying to seduce them with maybe the ways that I looked. And by look, I mean, I could look at them in a certain way and be suggestive. And let me know, I'm telling y'all, I'm not saying this is nothing to be proud of. Like, I'm not saying it like this. I'm saying I can recall thinking like this at 9 and 10 years old. And there was a war going on within me, because there was that side of me that was thinking like that. And then there was a whole nother side of me that knew that was wrong. And that was like, no, don't do that. That's not right. There was a side of me that was still shy, a side of me that didn't want to do the things that I was over here in one side of myself thinking of. And I'll never forget when I was trying to call myself being fast, man. And there was a guy that was 14. He was one of my good friends and neighbors in the country town that we lived in. He was her older brother. And I was just like, oh, he is so fine. And he was a Hispanic man, a Mexican guy. He wasn't Hispanic. He was Mexican. And I can literally remember playing in the dirt. And my mind was like, look at how he's looking at you. He likes you type stuff. You need to go talk to him. My mind was saying things to me and telling me what to do. And I was sitting there listening. And I'll never forget, like, I watched him so much that I remember him inviting me into their house. Now, we used to go play in and out of their house anyway, because we can play with them. They're our friends and our neighbors. And I remember going, and I was by myself. My sisters wasn't with me. My brothers weren't with me. It was just me by myself. And I'm the oldest. So we were never supposed to go into even our neighbors' houses by ourselves. And especially without our parents knowing. But I was being wrong and disobedient. And I walked in that young guy's apartment. And I don't know if anybody else was there. I don't think anyone else was there, because the next place we wound up was in this man's room. And I will never forget how he started kissing on me. And in my mind, I already knew that something like that was going to happen. Like, it had played out in my mind. And I thought I was ready for that. And I thought that I was a big enough girl for that. This is what sexual sin will do. This is what, being touched and raped at a young age had begun to deposit in my spirit. So these spirits were talking to me, telling me what to do. And I listened to them. I yielded to them. And y'all, when I got in that room and that boy was trying to make out with me and probably tried to have sex with me, and I was scared out of my mind, I remember him kissing on me. And at first it was slow, and he's walking with me and we're walking and kissing. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, the other part of me that wasn't down with that and wasn't, about that life was like, I'm scared. I was scared out of my mind. And then when he laid me down on that bed, I was even more terrified. And I was praying like, Lord, please, if you just let me get up out this room and don't let this boy do nothing to me, I'm not going to do that no more. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I do not know to this day, because I've not tried to really relive this and recall this, but somehow there was a way of escape that was made, and he didn't get to continue. Like, and even he kind of got scared or something. So I just got out of that room so fast, and I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I remember after that experience, I really, really chilled out. So I was like 9 or 10 years old there. And I can remember after that, it's like it's almost like I had all of my super, super, super promiscuous thoughts and actions happen when I was younger. I was still getting raped constantly by an older family member. off and on though. It was like in between because this person was in and out of jail and didn't always live with us. But when they did come to live, I mean, it was kind of regular to the point to where I could expect that it was going to happen. And I remember having to know in my mind that I had to learn the routine of this person. I remember dreading that, okay, after we go outside to go play, when we're all outside playing and everything like that, he's going to call us in one by one, you know, and he's going to do that so that or two by two even. And when it's my turn, I know that he's going to sit me on his lap a certain way. I remember just having this person down packed, and I hated that I knew what was going to happen because in a way I felt guilty that I was still participating. It's like, what's going on is wrong. I felt wrong about it and everything, but because this was somebody that was older than me, to know that I was still going along, I will never forget how the enemy used to try to condemn me with that, like, and really almost had me believing that I wanted to be a part of that I looked forward to it when I know I did not. I know that I never wanted to have sex with one of my family members. I didn't even know what sex was. But because of him, I was having sex at the age of 9 or 10 years old with one of my older brothers. And I learned how to use, like, we already had a vivid imagination, but because that started happening to me, I learned how to go different places, you know, be whoever and wherever I wanted to be. I remember trying to pretend to be asleep and just all these different things. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's literally what led me to begin to act the different ways and to even think. Even there were things that I thought of that I never did act out, but I have thought of them. And then when I got much older, there that I'm going to address a little bit later, because of these incidents, because of these things. I remember one time that I was trying to pretend like I was asleep. When he came and he tried to sneak me out of the bedroom, this was my way of kind of trying to fight back. I remember pretending like I was asleep and I didn't move. I was like, I'm not going to move this time. I'm just going to stay right here. And I said to myself, if anything is going to happen, he's going to have to do it right here. My brothers and sisters were in the bed with me, and this man still climbed on top of me and had his way. And I was sitting there fake sleep, wasn't sleep, felt everything, and was just sad. I mean, sad and crying. That molestation and that rape happened to me until I was about 12 years old. By this time, they was teaching people, if there's someone touching you inappropriately, say this, say that. I remember the one thing that scared me the absolute most, because at this time I wasn't completely aware that it was happening to one of my other sisters as well. I remember thinking that it would be, I hated that it was happening to me. And the enemy is so dangerous and so horrible that the enemy will try to, like, I had this other side of myself. While I hated it, there was another side that it made me different somehow from my sisters, that my brother desired me. It was so twisted. But it's very real. It was like I didn't care about my brother. I didn't like him in the same ways that he was dealing with me, but it brought up feelings of, I don't know, like, I don't even know how to describe it other than I felt in some ways that he desired me more than my siblings. And that wasn't a good thing, but I don't know what that spirit was about, but it actually had me feeling like, okay, it had me feeling like there's something about me that he wanted. I don't even know what, I promise y'all, I don't get that myself. And that was even twisted. So it twisted stuff. It twisted boundaries. It blurred emotions for me. Like, it messed me up. I hated him on one hand, could not stand him, but I loved him because he was just bare minimum my brother. And then I was confused, like, do I love him in another way? Because my brother used to tell me that I was his girlfriend. And I used to think that was a good thing to desire, but when it's your brother, it's like it was mixed. So I guess I still had this whole idea that, I was desired, but yet I hated it. Yet I hated it. And I hated it even more to think that it could be happening to any one of my brothers and sisters. So I'll never forget, like, this one time, I felt like I was way more mature now. I could say what I needed to say. I wasn't scared anymore. It was like a holy boldness came over me this one particular day because I was watching him and it made me way more observant of men in general. I believe it messed up my relationship with my father because, oh man, I think all of us, I'm pretty sure me and all my sisters and brothers love our daddy, and if he would leave and go somewhere, we love both our parents, just to be honest. But there was a time when I really loved my father. Like, I just adored him in some way. Whenever he would leave, I would really be sad. And sometimes whenever I'd be trying to get my way about maybe taking a bath, I was at an age where I was really trying to take a bath. I was like 8 or 9. And I was really, really concerned about taking my baths. And I would have more than one bath and I would change my clothes and stuff. And I remember this one time that mama was like, baby, you doing too much. You need to go sit down somewhere. You just played outside. You just had a bath a couple hours ago. What you trying to do taking a bath and changing your clothes now? And I'll never forget that it's like daddy kind of came in real quick and defended me. And I was so happy because, it's always something about when your father protects you or when your father sides with you and allows you to do something that maybe somebody else thinks is, it's not that important, but because it's important to you, they speak up on behalf of you. And I know mamas can do it too, but it was just something about my father doing that for me that I was so happy about that and appreciated that. And then because of these things, even though that was happening in the times that I was getting abused and raped, I still loved my daddy. But I don't know what happened. It's like it began to shift. It began to change. All of a sudden, I was getting older faster. And it's like, oh, I can't sit on my daddy lap no more. Because I was now aware of the things that go on with a man in his lap. I didn't even want to sit on my daddy lap no more. My daddy would be calling me to love on me just like he usually always did with all of our siblings, except for the boys. And I know it was certain things I just didn't want to do anymore. And as a result, I think it just made me grow distant with my father. So I'll say that at 12, I was way distant from my daddy at this point. I felt like I was pretty much grown. I wasn't, but mentally, I was a young adult woman, and I could make decisions for myself and all this kind of stuff, little small ones. We were living here back in Houston. We weren't in the country anymore. And this same man, my brother, was living with us, whom, by the way, I still love him as my brother. I have forgiven him and everything. I have no ill will towards my brother um, at all, by the way. I remember he was still living with us at this time when we were back in Houston, and I'm 12. And I remember my parents had gave us chores to do. They were leaving the house, and I usually hated when they left because these were the times that, he had time to mess with any one of us and stuff like that. And I just knew at some point he was going to be calling me to myself so he could say rude and nasty things or so he could do something. And I was just like, I had been trying to work up within myself for a while that I'm going to say something. So by this year, I remember but before I could say what I said, I remember watching him and observing him with my brothers and my sisters. And he used to play fight with them, even with my brothers. And I was even more fiercely protective over them with that because I was just like, that would really be wrong. Like, not to say that it wasn't wrong for me, but it would really be wrong if he was messing with my brothers. So I remember kind of trying to be like, y'all need to clean up. Y'all need to clean up. But it was really to get them away from him. And so it worked a little bit, but I watched how he was with my baby sister, and I was just scared that he had done something to her already. I kind of just always questioned it, but I never, in my mind, but I never asked. So this day I'm at the house and mom and daddy are gone, and I'm outside now because I have to go pick up these cans and put them in a bag so we can go take them to the aluminum man. And I go into the backyard and he comes back there and he starts saying some really gross things to me. And I'm listening at first and I'm just like, ugh, like, why are you saying this to me? Sometimes I was even fake laughing, y'all, just not really concerned about the nasty crap that he was telling a 12-year-old girl, but I was there and listening, and so I would fake like I was paying attention and laughing. And I remember, like, out of nowhere, this boldness came, and I can't remember what he told me, but he said something to me, and I told him, I looked my brother in his face, and I told him that if he ever touched me again, or any one of my sisters, or my brothers, that I was going to call the police on him, and I was going to tell them everything he had done to me. I think he must have really upset me about something. I don't remember what it was. But I told him that day and I meant it. And I feel like there was a look in my eye. I feel like there was a certain tone in my voice when I said it. And I was shaking, y'all. I'm telling you, I was shaking the entire time I was right there talking to him. But I said that and I'll never forget that I walked off. I hurried up and walked away from him as fast as I could. And I never saw my brother again until years later. In this, after that, I was just really happy and really proud of myself because I did not get touched no more at 12. No more abuse from my brother. But I did have to live with the effects of it. So here we go. I'll never forget, we had finally moved on. We grew up and everything like that. From the abuse, though, I have to say this before I go on any further because this is what it's really about. I have a whole nother video or about the actual abuse itself, but to talk about some of the other shameful things that happened so that the Most High can get the glory of how far he's brought me. I have talked about the sexual sins that have come out of this situation for me and this unhealthy and immoral relationship between my brother and myself. From that, a spirit of perverseness, I'm pretty sure, had its way with me and was able to get into me because I remember that from that, even though I did not, after 12, I made sure to clink and lock my own self down. I didn't let nobody touch me. I made a personal vow within myself that I wasn't gonna personally give myself up in sexual activity until I was married. And that's a whole nother story that I'm gonna have to go into. But with me making this mental note, this kept me all the way through pretty much, I want to say I want to say 5 years plus, 5+ years of college. Now I was in college for a while, but let's not dwell. That's not the point. The point is from high school all the way to college, I never had sex. Oh gosh, I never had sex. And of course there were attempts, but not on my part, just me being, gullible or me liking somebody enough to be like hanging with them, but them asking and me having to always say no. I mastered the art of saying no. I could say it in so many different ways, and be so nice about it, but it was always no. It was a no. So I kept myself, but I didn't really keep myself. Like I kept myself from having the actual act of sex. Nobody else penetrated me. But the mental activities that I engaged in were ridiculous. I'm talking about pornography. I was introduced to pornography, oh, Lord, by another one of my brothers. He suffered with it. And at first I was like, ew, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And then it came back up again when I was in college and I was on my own, living by myself. And some of the young college boys that used to come to my house, like to visit some of my sisters and stuff like that, they left some DVDs. And I'm a movie person. I love watching movies and stuff like that. And so I'm like a romantic comedy person. Don't get me wrong. I don't like watching those types of movies. But I was at my apartment. I had made myself something to eat and was about to get ready to watch a really good movie, I thought. And I saw this DVD and I put it in. And I didn't even look at it. I didn't look at it. I don't know if it was one of those DVDs that they made or if it was a real one. You know, they have the names and stuff on there. I don't know. I don't think the first one that I saw was. It didn't have anything on there. So I popped that thing in thinking I was going to just, I don't know, watch a good movie. Oh, I got to backtrack. Before pornography, though, I used to have to watch movies that had sex scenes in it. I almost forgot that. That was the way for me it started. I feel like that's what led up to pornography for me. When I got a certain age and I got to be around people who kind of let us have a little bit more freedom, um, at about 13 or 14, I loved romantic stories just because of the romance part or the love stories, but I also loved a sex scene. That was something. It used to do something for me. I also used to write raunchy poetry. Now, mind you, I'm not having sex of my own, but I'm telling y'all, the mind was already at work. I don't say this, but I feel like I was a little whore in my mind, even though I was chased physically, because I didn't want my brother to rape me. I didn't ask for him to come and have sex with me, but because that happened, a lot of people would technically be like, technically you're not a virgin. And I didn't talk about this to everybody, don't get me wrong, but when certain people did hear my testimony and did hear my story, they would be like, oh, well, then you're not technically a virgin. And I remember being so angry when people would say that, because I'm like, I remember they used to offend me at first. I used to be so mad. Oh, I used to be angry when people said that I wasn't a virgin anymore, but it was true. So the older I got, I did come to grips with that fact. But ooh, I remember that I used to really get mad when people would say that. And I used to argue with them and be like, yes, I am. I am a virgin. I ain't had sex before. Girl, I used to fight tooth and nail for that. So, um, my mind was just ridiculous, y'all. I'm not even playing. My mind was all over the place. I used to be having all types of dreams that were sexual. Um, Most of my dreams were always a fine man wanting to get my behind, wanting to have sex with me saying, no, I'm a virgin. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. And usually it would end with somebody deciding that they loved me enough as a person and stuff like that. And of course, because they wanted to have sex with me, that they would fight for me and marry me. That was really the basis of the majority of my dreams. And those were the good ones. The bad ones were usually of me, you know, trying to fight my brother off and of course usually not winning, and then waking up. No. Yeah, those were the bad ones. I would be trying to fight my brother and not winning, and then I would just wake up feeling sad that it happened to me. Like, I would wake up thinking, how come I didn't do something more? Why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I scream? Sometimes this stuff happened and my parents were in the house. So I'm just like, why didn't I say something? I must have, this was that spirit of condemnation saying, you must have wanted it. You must have liked it. Yeah, you didn't say anything. You sat there and let it happen. That was true. I did. So I had these different thoughts going on. On top of that, sometimes I would have dreams of interactions between myself and women. Us grinding on each other and me getting sexually excited by that. And so sometimes I used to be like, okay, what do I like girls? Do I want to be with a woman? And I would always be like, no, I don't think I want that. That's not right anyway. It's just not right. But on top of that, did that really mean that I wanted to be with a girl? And for me, the answer was no. But I did have very vivid dreams like that. Like I would have those dreams where I would feel like something was on top of me and doing something with me. My genital area would be throbbing. This is how real some of these experiences were. What else? Um so I would usually fantasize about getting married. Like if I didn't have sex after I got married, I would have sex in a dream before, but the man would then propose to me. I always had to somehow make it right because I knew that technically that's not supposed, we're supposed to get married first and then have sex. That's what I was always taught. So in my dreams, it always had to be right. At some way it had to be right. My good dreams that would be about my brother, it was either I would fight him off in a dream and that was a good dream. And again, like in the other ones, I get married or something like that. The bad ones, I didn't fight him off and I was having dreams about women. So, I mean, my mind it was crazy. It was all over the place. And I bet you to see me, I looked very polished. I looked very well put together, you guys. And I'm not saying that I wasn't, but I wasn't. Like, I'm not saying that I was trying to look like that. Like, I had a self image of myself that I wanted, that I desired to have, that I worked to have because I didn't want to accept this other version of myself. You know what I mean? So I had my image of myself, of a classy young lady, a woman who carried herself with respect and with dignity. And I read my Bible because that was something that always helped me. I would cry at nights and I would pray like, Lord, I want you to take these things away from me. But it didn't happen overnight and it didn't happen like that. I was praying for many years. I also used to masturbate. I could get it on a couch, on a bed. And I remember looking up masturbation and trying to find it in scripture and I remember finding an article that taught that, it was probably a better thing to do for people who were trying to save themselves from marriage because it would keep them from committing that sin with somebody else. And I remember kind of grasping that because, to be quite honest, it was part of the reason why I really didn't feel the need to have sex with anybody else because I was already having it by myself. And I felt like it kept me from wanting to go out and just have sex with anybody, aside from my own personal spiritual conviction. But I was like, if it was right, I wouldn't feel so dirty and I wouldn't feel so bad afterwards. Nobody really talked about that in our household. Like masturbation is wrong. They didn't teach us nothing about that. So it's not like there was anybody who was making me feel bad for what I did. But every time it never failed. Every time I masturbated by myself, I felt like it was dirty and it was wrong because 9 times out of 10, I was having to sneak to do it anyway. I'm in a room by myself. I had to learn how to be sneaky. So I just knew that it wasn't right for just different reasons. When things are not done in the light, it's darkness and the enemy can work. And so for many years, I walked around with this information that I'm having sex with myself but I'm the virgin girl, and that's what people knew me as, a girl who was a virgin, who was wholesome. And I remember thinking that, boy, I tell you, if people really knew the thoughts that go on in this little mind of mine, I would be embarrassed. And I don't think that they would think I was so holy or so wholesome anymore. Even though I wanted to be. But these thoughts were still there, you know? And I was still, and these, not only were these thoughts there, but they were literally causing me to do something. I was doing it by myself on a sofa or on a bed. And then when I couldn't get off by myself, That's when I turned to things like pornography. And it wasn't just regular pornography that could get me off or get me to the point of where I was feeling myself and feeling good. It was homosexual pornography. It was lesbian pornography. And I remember, boy, I tell y'all, I wrestled with that for years. I wrestled with that for years. I wrestled with that for years. And I remember wondering, why is it that this is the thing that gets me off? Why is this what gets me off? I remember when I was younger, I did do things with young girls. Um, so that was something that was planted very early on. And when I saw it again as a young adult, oh my gosh, it was crazy. I would struggle against that and masturbation and just against these negative thoughts. And I would fail every time. Especially, and I always noticed that it would get even heightened around my cycle time. I didn't pay attention at first, but when I really started trying to pinpoint what was happening and why and when and asking all these questions even to the Most High, I was like, Lord, why is it that I could be good, y'all, for months, even for years, if I focused hard enough and if I really worked hard enough and kept myself busy. But all of a sudden, it seemed like it would hit me out of nowhere, and then boom, I have fallen again into this dirt, you know, into this super vile and disgusting activities that I was doing by myself, mind you. I was by myself. And I'll never forget that scripture that teaches that those who do, who are sexually immoral, they sin against themselves. And the Lord let me know that that's what I was doing. Every time I masturbated by myself, I was sinning against my own body. Every time, even I watch pornography, I'm sinning against my own body. So I would feel horrible. I would feel bad. I would cry out a lot to the Father, like snotting and crying and like, Lord, just please take this away from me. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of having to ask you, I'm tired of having to tell you I'm sorry for the same thing over and over and over again. I'm tired of having to say, Lord, please forgive me. And believing and knowing that you'll forgive me, but also knowing all the while that I'm going to do this again. Like, I was like, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. But I would accept that forgiveness anyway because I needed it. And then I'd be good for for however long I was good and however long I was guarding myself. And then around my cycle, it would hit me again. So basically, the older I got and I kept paying more attention to when it happened, I started to realize that it was when I was getting ready to ovulate or being on my cycle that these urges would, hit me like hard. And it would start first in my mind. All of a sudden, I felt the need to pleasure myself and get off. And I knew that a surefire way that I could do that would be masturbation. And of course, a way that I could really hurry up and do that thing was putting on a film. And not a film, but it's so crazy. I learned how to easily access this stuff from the internet. So that was even worse because that was just like it was at your fingertips. It's easy. So up at night, all times of the night, with my mama and my daddy in the house, my sisters and my brothers. And at first, I'm just really watching movies. Don't get it twisted. I'm really just watching movies. But if I stay up past 12 o'clock at night, there is a 87% chance, and especially if I'm getting closer to my cycle, that I'm going to click on some type of pornographic website. This is how bad it was. Um, and I'll never forget. I had always been praying and crying out to the Father, Lord, I need you to help me because now, I'm getting older. I still haven't, given my body to anyone else in sex, but it's not getting any easier for me, Lord. And I don't want to keep sinning like this. I remember crying out to God. Crying and being like, Lord, can you please send me my husband already? Because I don't want to keep sinning in this way. I don't want to. I don't want to do this to you no more. I'm tired of it. I was hurting. I was hurting. I was hurting. Like, there's no feeling like you desiring, like your spirit, the person that really, that thing that makes you who you are, desiring to please the Most High God, the best of your ability, that that you can, and that that you're supposed to do. And knowing that you keep failing that God because of your flesh and because of things that it seems like you just can never get over and overcome. There's no worse feeling than that. And I just remember just being so sad, so disappointed a lot of times with myself. So disappointed with myself because I would fall every time into that trap. And I remember studying about it and reading up and finding up more information on it in scripture. And I'll never forget coming across Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26. And I had come across that chapter before, but as the Lord started to wake me up more into the truth and how we're supposed to keep His commandments and everything like that, like it hit me that, bruh, like I read that scripture and it's like that scripture leapt off at the page at me. And it was like, now that you know the truth, there's no more sacrifice for sin. So if you keep doing all these things that are breaking God's laws, there's no more sacrifice for sin for you. And you can look forward to and fear the judgment that He's coming to bring. And I prayed another prayer, but it was different because I remember when I prayed that particular prayer, I was making up in my mind that I was going to start guarding myself. Like, I'm going to start, watching what I watch on television. I was going to start going to bed at a certain time. And I even enlisted the help of my sisters because I told I told my sisters that, you guys, this is what I struggle with. I was embarrassed about it. Like, it's embarrassing. It's really not something that you just want to talk about and just tell people, especially not when you're a person striving to just to be obedient to God. It's just not cool. It's really not to me, not to me. It was personally embarrassing, but I still told my sisters and them because I knew that if I told somebody, it would cause me to have to be accountable. And so they did agree to help me and stuff like that. And so it worked. Excuse me. It worked for the most part. There were some times that I did fall again, but I can count those times after that prayer and after seeing that scripture leap off at the page before I was fighting it. And I praised God. Like, this prayer this time, it wasn't a pitiful prayer. It wasn't, Lord, I'm so tired of doing this same thing over. Please save me. Please help me. It wasn't like I want Him to help me. Don't get me wrong, I did. But it was more like, this time there's something that you have to do, Jude. You 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 can't keep asking God to help you and you not make some real changes in your own life. I had to pay attention to myself. I had to start paying attention to what these thoughts sounded like in my head when they popped up, and everything like that. And so that made me take responsibility. And that's when changes happened in my life. And I remember praising God because I was like, Lord, I know it's different. It was so different. I knew it was going to be over because I was going to make sure that it was going to be over. And I didn't have an issue that I don't think I had. Like, it was a progression. I'm not gonna lie. I can't say I didn't have an issue anymore. I slowly took hold and took control of that. And I watched a few more times randomly and sporadically. And then before then, it was a wrap. And I even stopped praying and asking for forgiveness. I started asking the Lord for mercy because I knew what the heck I was doing. And eventually, I have to admit, it stopped. And I praise the Most High because it's like, to this present day that I'm giving this testimony, I haven't had those issues. Don't get it twisted. Those thoughts have tried to come back up again. and at the same time that they usually do. But like if my cycle is coming, or if I'm up past 12, but I tell my mind, and then not only me telling my mind, I just pay attention that it's come, and then I fight it. I literally fight it in my brain. Like, that's not from me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I have to be real with y'all. There was one time that I tried to masturbate again after like years of it not happening. I wasn't trying to do it again for the pleasure. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I know this probably sounds stupid because I probably shouldn't have tried that or tested myself, but I tried it to test myself. And when I tell you that thing that would have always worked to get me going, when I tell you I know it wasn't dead, but nothing happened. It didn't do anything. And I stopped fast because I didn't want nothing to go down. And I thanked God because I was just like, wow, Most High, like you did that for me. And I know that it was, I know that it was me, but I feel like it was because I cried out to him and then got it in my spirit and in my heart that I've got to do some things that he and me together, we have been successful. But I will always tell anybody, never think that the thing, and I don't want to say it like as if God is not capable of completely removing something from you, but I just want to keep it ever before me because I've noticed with an addiction, like something like that, as soon as you think you've got it under control and you really, really, really think you good because you ain't done it in some years or you haven't done it in some months, that's when the enemy can come back and boom, get you. And before you know it, you didn't fell right back into that same thing that you have been praying so hard to get out of. So I don't like to make it seem like I'm completely out of the woods, even though it's been years since I've touched myself or ever had a desire to do that. And of course, since I've watched pornography, it's been years, and I praise God for that. I give Most High God all the glory because I know it's not just Jude by herself, because I kept failing before. No matter how much my heart desired to please the Father, I kept falling. So then let's go on to the fact that, even like when I was 25, I remember saying a very foolish prayer now that I look back on it, because it was probably exactly what Satan would have loved to hear. I prayed a prayer about a husband, and I was like, Lord, well, I always pray my prayer about my husband. I was like, Lord, I want my husband. I wish you would send in my husband because it's getting harder. Do. But this other prayer, I was all crying and I was all sad because there were guys that had come in and out of my life in college who thought I was beautiful or attractive or witty or whatever they thought about me, smart, but nobody stuck around. I used to wonder, like, am I even good enough? Because, I don't know. It's just like people like to be my friend and stuff like that in the guy department, and they thought I was beautiful, but it's kind of like if I wasn't having sex, they definitely wasn't down to stick it out. And they pretended like they were, but then they didn't. So I was just be like, Lord, is there something, like, what's wrong with me that there's no man, that'll stick around. So I kind of got over that a little bit. And I remember praying to the Father. I was like, Lord, okay, when it comes to my first time. And when I say praying, I mean, I'm really talking to the Father like I'm talking to you guys. I used to sit up in my bed, talk to God all the time. And I would say, like, Most High, or God, because I wasn't calling on the Most High. I was saying God. And so I was like, God, I noticed that I always say prayers with alternate endings or like options, which I think is actually wrong. I feel like it's double-minded. That's what the Father had been showing me now, more so in my, um, just in these times. But I remember back then I prayed, God, I either want to be a virgin until I'm actually married. I want to marry my friend. I want to marry a man who has been my friend for a long time. Never wanted anything else from me, but at the appropriate time, maybe he'll look at me like it's time to get married type stuff. And I'd be like, yay. And we get married, and we have also awesome sex. Or I want to hurry up and get this sex thing out of the way so that I won't be so afraid of it anymore. Because I was deathly afraid of sex. Like, the way people have arachnophobia, they're scared of, spiders, or they're scared of going outside or whatever. I mean, I was scared of sex. I was scared. Anytime a guy would even just be remotely sexual, I'd clam up. I would panic on the inside. And if somebody kissed me and I wasn't ready, they just did it to me and it was time to go. That's how fearful I was, because in my mind, if you kiss me, you're going to want to have sex with me. So I was afraid of that, and I just kept a lot of guys at bay and at distances. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of guys from my college years and would say that I was a tease, but it wasn't like I was trying to be a tease. It's just, I liked them, but I just, anytime it got close to sex, it was just a wrap. And I would want to be their friend, but after they would do that, if they tried to make a move on me, I was like, oh no. I would cut people off. I would just cut guys off. They wouldn't even know why we wasn't cool anymore or nothing, And to them, kissing is natural. Humping, all these things are just natural, biological, even sex. And to me, I had this high value on sex. One, because of my spiritual belief, and two, just because of the simple fact that I had been raped and molested. And this time around, wasn't nobody taking sex from me. I was going to give it to somebody, who I felt was worthy. So anyway, I know I'm getting long-winded, you guys, but this is my testimony, and I'm going to try to cut it short because I don't want to bore anybody. But the prayer that I prayed about, how I would like to have sex for the first time of my own accord, the one that didn't happen was the one that I feel that I really, really would have preferred happened. And that was that I would meet my husband, like it would be one of my really great friends, who stuck by me, or we were just really great as a friendship and all that kind of stuff. And then we eventually evolve and we grow up and we're like, hey, I think I care about you more type stuff. That one didn't happen, you know. Um, but that other prayer that I prayed, the one about it being somebody I wouldn't care about, that way, if it happened before I got married, I wouldn't care about that man. And because I'd heard so many stories, I used to be really interested in people's virginity stories. So I used to ask girls all the time, and even guys, like, how did they lose it? What did they feel? I was asking all types of questions. And the common denominator was that their first was somebody who they really couldn't get out of their system for a long time. So I was like, I don't want to be like that. It was just mental notes that I was making, not to talk about anybody else, but it was just like, I don't want to be that way. I don't want someone to have that much control or power over me. But my second prayer was, let me have sex with somebody who I don't even know him. I don't care about him. So that way, if he's my first, at least he'll take away me, at least he'll help me get over the fear of sex itself, but I won't care about him. So it won't really hurt my heart if we don't wind up together. Y'all, I'm not even lying when I tell you that some boy that I didn't even know, that was never on my radar, he would have never been anything that I would have selected for myself. He popped up in my life one summer. The summer before I was going to be 25, I was still 24. In June, he popped up in my life. And by July, I was no longer a virgin. I can remember that day very clearly and distinctly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm about to just tell you this, and then I'm going to just bring this testimony and everything to a close. This guy used to come to my house along with a friend of his, or a cousin, I think, of his, who was my friend and my sister's friends. And we used to sit around and just have discussions, like literally meaningful discussions about any and everything from life to college to, family issues, things like that. I was the spiritual person, in my family and also in this particular circle of people. And so I think people expected me to give cookie cutter answers or to give the righteous answer. They used to make fun of me all the time around school, but I was okay with it. I was like, and I'm fine with that. Yes, I am the spiritual one. Yes, I am. Even though I was going through all types of different things mentally, I was struggling against those things. It wasn't just like I was living two different lives. I was struggling. And I used to want people to know that, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm not this girl who got her stuff together just because I still uphold the word of God over what I'm really going through. I will tell you what I'm going through, but I'm not going to broadcast it for everybody, you know? But anyway, long story short, this is how he came into the circle. Um, he would be at those chats and we'd all just have a good time talking, maybe eating on something, maybe not eating anything, and we just talk sometimes. And I remember he came back over to my house and I was writing a script and it was called So You Want, no, it was called something else. Hold on. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it was like something like, So You Wanna, so it was something. I'm almost scared that I'm gonna mix it up with a high school play that we did, and I don't want to do that, so I'm not gonna do that. But I was writing a script about a young college couple who a lot of people looked up to this little couple, but they wound up having a situation that happened where they were both virgins, but then they get together and they do stuff and they slip up. But the guy marries the girl because he truly loves her instead of ditching her and stuff like that. So I'm working on this script all summer. And this guy comes over and he sees me writing and stuff. And so he's like intrigued by me or something. And eventually he asked me a lot of questions. We start conversing. And before I know it, he's like, why you always talking about virginity and sex and like you don't want to have it and all this kind of stuff? And I was like, because I don't. I want to wait until I'm married. So I'm holding up and I'm standing strong. But y'all, to be honest, I was getting so weak. Not with him, but I mean, just in general, I was getting weaker, and I was having thoughts by myself when nobody was around. That Lord, it's getting hard. It's really getting harder. You know, so he comes around and he kind of says things out loud that I was thinking by myself, and I denied them while he was there, kind of, sort of, not everything, but denying that it was getting harder for me to hold on because he called me out on that, and he was like, he said something to me that it was like he could sense somehow that I was curious about sex and that I probably wanted to have it, but that I was just scared. And when he was able to do that, it was like I was in between upset and just like, how can he tell? So I asked him, how could he tell? And I don't know, I don't even remember what he told me, but look, after that, he took some interest in my play and all that kind of stuff. And he was talking about how he could help because he wrote with stuff like that. And he just enjoyed things like that. And I was like, okay, cool. So he told me he was going to come back around another time. I remember hopping in the shower, like after he left my house, about to get ready to go to bed actually. And as I was in the shower, a thought literally ran across my brain and a voice was there and was like, you need to clean good because you're going to have sex tonight. When I tell you ain't no thought in my brain ever crossed my mind like that in life, and that voice was very audible and I could hear it, I was like, I literally peeked out the shower, y'all. I kid you not. I wish there was somebody else who could vouch for this, but there's nobody because I was by myself in this apartment. But I looked out the shower to see if somebody else was in that house with me. That voice was that audible. And I kind of snickered and laughed it off and I was like, okay, whatever. I don't know what I don't know what you talking about, but And I went to bed because this was a normal night for me in the summer. I keep to myself and everything like that. And so I was going to sleep, and this boy popped up at my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. And sure enough, you guys, I had sex for the first time ever in my life of my free will. Some random guy that I didn't even know. So there you go. The prayer that I prayed, one of them was answered. Wasn't the one I wanted. And guess what? It didn't even work the whole because we didn't know each other and stuff like that. Like I still kind of began to grow something for him just because I'm a girl who don't just give her body out willy-nilly like that, because I know how I am. I get attached. So after different random sexual escapades with that guy, that opened up a, oh my gosh, that opened up a I say it like this. I sum it up like this. I went on a mini host draw. Feeling what I felt, it was like a high that I wanted to kind of experience again and again and again and again. And so where I had first exercised discretion, I wasn't being that way anymore. Like with the guys that I had already developed a friendship with for like a while, who I thought were attractive, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I was exuding something or if somebody could just tell, but I don't know, y'all. I'm telling you, after I did that, it's like people, it's like boys. Now I ain't talking about just regular people. I mean, oh my gosh, what am I saying? I'm not talking about like women. I'm saying guys. It's almost like guys could tell. So with that being said, I had sex with a few more partners besides the guy that I originally had sex with. Um, and I did some just things that I know within my spirit, I actually think are disgusting. I think it's unsafe. I think it's unwise. You know, it's dangerous. It's dangerous if you think about it. It's dangerous when you think about it. But I did some of those things. Um, and of course, with the only person that my feelings got hurt with was with the guy who originally, I gave myself to, because um I guess because he was my first, I don't know. Like, I really just would have preferred to have a relationship, a serious relationship that hopefully led to marriage. That was still my ideal, and it was still something that I was still hoping for. But that did not happen, and that brother was not thinking about that. So, with that being said, that was a connection that I began to have, and now I had walked around with that connection for years, because that guy could walk in and out of my life, and if he called me or text me and told me he was coming to get me or he was coming to see me, I would be going with him places, and eventually at some point it was gonna wind up where we was in the bed. And I would be pained all the time, because it's like I wanted more. And you don't want no more. And I know you don't want no more. And you ain't about nothing. And I know you're not about nothing. But I keep coming with you. We had some things in common. We both loved music. He was a producer, rapper. I sing. I love music as well. So there were a few things that were there, and we love stimulating conversation, but he was not the one. And I can't say that I'm looking for the one, but I knew good doggone well we wasn't going to be together. And I still would have sex with him knowing that it was hurting me, you know? So eventually I had to stop and cut all of that off. And it didn't, to be honest, I didn't cut it off with him. He had to keep doing me real bad until I got it in my spirit that that's not the way I want to be treated. And then I stopped. So basically what I'm saying is the sexual perversion is something that I have personally struggled with as long as I really can remember. Um, and it also opened up me to so many other spirits even of fear. Like, fear entered in my life because of that. I didn't trust men anymore. It was so deep, you guys, that I didn't even want to work with men. If it was a job where I was going to possibly be around men, I didn't want it. I still to this day don't like working out in the gym, because I always think men gonna be looking at me. But I'm not so afraid anymore of men. The Lord has dealt with a lot of the things that have become residual side effects, but it made me fearful. It made me fearful that a man was gonna hurt me. Um, It was just a lot of stuff, a lot of things that these doors open. On top of that, I was always embarrassed because the dreams about women, they would still keep coming. Like, I mean, they would pop in my mind and just happen. I'll never forget, I had a recurring bad dream that I kept getting literally raped and humped on at like outside of a church by a woman. A woman. Would I be walking out of the church and saying goodbye to everybody, and a woman would throw me down on the floor? And I'm gonna tell you why it's a bad dream, because to me, that is inappropriate. That's wrong. That's an abomination to the Most High God. That's number one. Number two, I felt like it was bad because it would literally cause me to thrive for real, like in real life. This is a dream that's happening to me, but my body is really being um something's really happening to my body. So I was scared thinking that I wanted to be with a woman because this sexually excited and aroused me. And I know I don't want no woman. Like I always desired a man. I have a thing for men. Like I do. I love men. Not to the point where I have with all types of people, but I'm saying I desire to be with a man of God who's going to love me and everything. And let's talk about how, because of all these nasty things in me, all these nasty thoughts that I had, that I used to think and cry myself to sleep at night because I used to believe that I was not good enough for a man, and that if I ever revealed any of these things to a man, that he would not want me anymore. That he wouldn't think I was wholesome anymore. That he wouldn't think that I was holy anymore or worth marrying or just having as a wife. And so for many years, there are things that I never shared with anybody else but my sisters and my best friend. And now I'm saying it here. And I'm going to tell you another reason why I feel like I was still so hurt, because when I did come into the faith and I held myself and the Lord helped me to keep myself, I didn't have sex for a year before I wound up moving to Jordan. And I kept myself even from men there, of course. And I desired love. I desired to be with somebody, but I didn't talk to anybody. I remember praying and drawing a picture of the type of, relationship I feel like I wanted to be a part of, you guys. And I remember praying and fasting for a husband. And so when I met the man that I wound up putting out on Facebook that first year that I was married to, like, he knew some stuff. He didn't know everything. I only told him what pretty much the general public who followed me already knew, which was that I had been raped and molested. Some of the other stuff came up after I had already slept with him. And also we had made this agreement that, it wasn't a full on agreement. It's just like I had already told him that the next time I ever had sex, it would be to my husband. Or if it was before we became husband and wife, that's what I would desire, that he make me his wife officially. So when we did have sex, to be very, very honest, I just believe that because he knew that about me and he knew my stance and that he was accepting that. So it was like when that happened and I had sex with him and we got together and had the relationship that we began to have, I really thought that was going to be till death do we part. Maybe I was definitely naive, but I did. And so there were ways that I let myself be free with him that I had never done with anybody before, because first and foremost, it was something I was fearful of at first. And I don't know, it was just things that were tainted for me because of the sexual abuse. And so when I was that way with him, it's just like for everything to go so, and not only that, before I ended, I shared a little bit with him that I had had interactions with women before. Um, both when I was younger and didn't know any better. And then I even told him about an interaction I had when I was older, but that I wasn't proud of. So it's like information, obviously, that you share with somebody that you probably wouldn't share with anyone else. He knew that about me. And eventually, basically, when we split up and when he left, I cried so many nights. First, because of the initial pain that it hurt. Like, for me, I gave myself to that man in such a way that I had literally never opened up ever to any man. I mean, really, to any other man. No other man can say that they were as close to me, like spiritually, even and the way that I opened up myself with him, sexually, even no other man. no other man. And so I feel like that's why I cried so much over him, and I hurt so deeply at that, because I'm just like, you know me in ways that no other man knows me, and I can't say that I'm going to be that way with any other man. You know, and one of my best friends in this faith, she said it so well and had me boohooing all over again, because what we have realized since, that happening and that separation, is that that relationship opened up old wounds that I thought were healed. It opened up wounds that I thought were healed, and for him to walk away and leave me, it's like it brought all these different emotions back up again. Like, am I worthy? um I wanted to love him, I wanted to be desired by him, and all these different things. And it's just like, for him to leave me and to like discard me like I was nothing, that hurt. That hurt. And I never thought about it like that at first, because again, I was trying my best not to think about it. And then, from everything from submitting to him and submission, all of it was affected, because I still didn't really trust men. And then I didn't really know him that well. So it's kind of like, what am I supposed to trust you for? Like, if I see that something is wrong, I'm not about to just get completely behind that. I was even this way with my own father. There were some things that I saw about my daddy that he was out of line about, and I would try to call my father out about it. So I'm like, what make you think that I'm about to not call you out, somebody who's not my father? Like, I didn't have a respect the person, not in that way, like try to be disrespectful, but my daddy wasn't really standing on certain truths. And when I would see that after reading, I wouldn't try to be disrespectful when coming to him about it, but I would still try to talk to daddy about it, and daddy would go crazy. So my father and I had a love relationship where I know my daddy loved me, and I know that my father knows that I loved him, but I challenged him, unfortunately, a lot. And now, in retrospect, with me having to be in a relationship with a man, the father has had to show me that, baby, even if you were right, you know, this is not for you to do. You can come to me and I can deal with them, but you can't go toe to toe with your daddy or a man or your husband and call them out on certain things. There are some things you're going to have to fight in the spirit. And I did not know that. And because I didn't withhold from my father, I didn't withhold on the man that I loved and said that was my husband. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I was messing up bad, y'all. Bad. Bad. And I believe that all of this had to deal with the wounds and the residual effects of sexual abuse that I had still harbored in me, the spirits that were still in me because of what happened. And now, you know, I'm connected to a man who I love dearly, and I'm gonna just be here for him, because I can't see myself giving myself to another man like this, especially also not because I don't believe that I'm supposed to. I believe I got a word from the Most High that's saying to wait on this man and that he's gonna restore. So that's what I'm going to do. I did not do that at first. I was doubting the Lord. Because, remember how I told y'all that I pray these two different prayers type things to try to kind of cover everything? I prayed a prayer about, Lord, if he ain't the one, then prepare me and give me to the one that's for me. And then I said, but if he is the one, when it's time, bring him back. Well, the Lord didn't tell me that there was going to be anyone else. The Lord, like, I believe it was the Lord that said it. But I could be wrong, because I didn't heard a voice before that told me I was going to have sex. And that couldn't have been of the Most High, because the Most High wouldn't have wanted that. You know? But this voice told me to wait on this man and to love him sacrificially. But like, I'm alive, that I was going to be exhibiting the love of Christ for this man, and that the Lord was going to restore us together, and he was then going to establish us in a union that was going to be far better than it was at first. Now, we didn't get to know each other. It was a very fast thing that happened, but I can tell you this, like, there was a respect between us at first. We enjoyed speaking to each other, and the connection that we had was beautiful at first. So I can only imagine, like, when it's actually right, and he's willing to do what he's supposed to as far as covering me as a righteous head. The Most High said that he was going to make things better than they were before. Then I'm just expecting something amazing. So again, I don't want to ever say this like I'm completely out of the woods, but I can tell y'all to this day that I have not watched another pornographic site. I have not gone seeking that. Um, I haven't been with anybody else besides the man that I call my husband. And even that, I remember doubting because it was like, Lord, did I do that because I was getting, hot and bothered again? But I remember when I go back over that testimony, I'm just like, I didn't do that by myself, and I didn't set that one up because um I know I was holding myself and I was fine. That wasn't me. So I give glory to the Most High now to know the difference. But at first I was going back and forth like, Lord, did I give off signals? Did I do that? Did I come on to him because I have a lust problem? That was something that I was having to think about. And I had to ask myself those questions because I've dealt with it before. Not like this, but just in the past. So I'm grateful to the Most High. I'm hoping that this testimony will definitely bring the Most High glory. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So shalom to everybody.